Namo Namaha. Swagatam, Hardam Swagatam. I welcome you all in the fourth lecture of the lecture series on New Dimensions of Sanskrit Research, organized by Department of Sanskrit, University of Mumbai. We have heard Dr. Nirmala Kulkarni, Professor Vijay Pandya, Dr. Pradnya Kulkarni in previous lectures of this series, and they have really explored different dimensions of Sanskrit research. Today, we are focusing on Sanskrit grammar. There is great tradition of grammar in Sanskrit language. Paninian grammar is very significant as far as today's research regarding Sanskrit computational linguistics, machine translation is concerned. It is a need to understand various prospects of research in the field of Sanskrit grammar in today's era. Today we have got a great scholar of Sanskrit grammar, Professor Dr. Malhar Kulkarni. He is a professor in the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences at IIT Bombay. He has rich academic profile and vast research experience. He is a scholar of international repute. In spite of that, he is so humble that he calls himself as a student of Paninian grammar. And in real sense, he still continues to explore new facets of Sanskrit grammar. The saying Vidya Vinayine Shobhate is very much apt about him. He has studied Paninian grammar in both traditional as well as modern university methods of education and continues to study it in both methods to this day. He is taught by stalwarts like Pandit Vaman Shastri Bhagwat Guruji and Professor S.D. Joshi. He has been imparting training in Paninian grammar to many students in both ways, traditional as well as modern, in Nishkarana manner. For more than offline use. This is very important in today's era that he spreads the knowledge of Sanskrit grammar without any expectations to keep the Shastric tradition alive. In the field of Sanskrit grammar, his word is literally considered as pramana, that is authoritative. Along with Professor Pushpak Bhattacharya, he is credited for the making of Sanskrit WordNet, an online multipurpose thesaurus, linked to such thesauri of more than 10 modern Indian languages. He is also credited for creation of Shabdamitra, a brand of digital tools aimed at teaching and learning of languages in school environment as well as other environments, with Sanskrit Shabdamitra as its part. Currently shouldering the responsibility as the first convener of the Vyakarana section of the 18th World Sanskrit Conference, scheduled to be held in Australian National University, Canberra in 2023. He has numerous publications in international journals, which are cited by many scholars. He is felicitated with many awards and laurels. There is a lot to learn from Professor Malhar Kulkarni, sir. I welcome you, sir, and namaste. I express my gratitude for accepting our invitation in spite of your busy schedule. And really, we are happy, sir, to have your presence in this virtual mode as well. And we are really eager to get guidance from you. I'm sure that our students will find some new ways to explore in the Sanskrit studies. So without spending much time, I request you to start with your lecture.
Vishvesham Satchidanandam Vandeham Yokhilan Jagat Charikarti Baribharti Sanjariharti Leelaya. Vishvesham Satchidanandam Vandeham Yokhilan Jagat Charikarti Baribharti Sanjariharti Leelaya. So first of all, I express my gratitude to the authorities of the Department of Sanskrit, University of Mumbai, for having extended an invitation to me to talk to this audience on the topic of the prospects of research in Sanskrit grammar, Vyakarana. I just heard that several other distinguished speakers have spoken about various fields before me in this particular series. And so I'm very happy to be a part of such illustrious speakers and to share some thoughts of mine to you on this particular theme. But before I proceed further, let me ask Professor Shakuntala Gowde, Madam, about the medium that we have to follow in this particular talk. Should it be English or should it be Marathi? Which one would you recommend? Would you prefer? Is it okay if I speak in English or you want me to speak in Marathi as well?
Sir, English is okay, but you can do bilingual as well. Whenever needed, you can switch in Marathi as well.
Okay. So we are celebrating language in this particular week. Yesterday, we had an International Mother Tongues Day. And very soon, on 27th of February, we are celebrating the Marathi Bhasha Divas, Marathi Bhasha Dina, Jagatik Divas. This week is very significant. I also thank Professor Shakuntala Gowde for selecting this significant day for the talk, which may not come again for long time to come. Today's day will be written as or is written as 22/2/22. That is something also very special. This is a coincidence, but yet a special coincidence. And we have to be thankful for getting an occasion to deliberate on this topic on this particular day, because Vyakarana is also something special, something similar, and doing research in Vyakarana does require certain qualities, certain features that we shall keep elaborating in the course of this particular lecture. Therefore, having this lecture in this particular week when we are celebrating languages is very significant for me personally, because Vyakarana obviously deals with language or languages. Vyakarana is considered to be one of the means for Shakti Graha in the Karika quoted in the Nyaya Siddhanta Muktavali. Shakti Graham Vyakarana Upamana Kosha Aptavakya Koshaptavakyat Vyavaharatashcha Vakyasya Sheshat Vivrater Sanidhyatah Siddhapadasya Siddhaha. So Vyakarana is considered as an important means for Shakti Graha, which is a very core principle, a fundamental principle as far as any language and the use of language in communication is concerned. Generally, the language research is carried out typically in some stipulated manners, stipulated ways. There is a field of philology which is primarily devoted to this particular task. Then obviously we have philosophy, where philosophy of language deals with several related topics. And then the newly established branch of learning, which got so much impetus in the last few years, few decades, because of the advancement of technology, digital technology. And that field is the computational linguistics. And within that as well, several other subfields, they are growing, and it becomes interesting for a student to know, to keep track of such several factors, such several developments in the field. Philology, philosophy, and computational linguistics. So much is happening in all these three spheres, and it is imperative, therefore, by us to take stock of what's happening and what's happening in these fields and what is the future in these respective fields. What are the prospects of research in these fields which are related to Vyakarana? For that, I would refer to some general observations that are needed, mostly around us. We don't have to go on moon to find out such instances. The problems are around us, and we can try figure them out, point them out, and try to see what kind of solution that can be offered in the Sanskrit Vyakarana research. I'll give you one example. In 2018, Indian cricket team toured Australia, and there they won a cricket test match. And it was in a very difficult situation. The Indian cricket captain had returned home for personal reasons, and India had suffered a very drastic defeat in the first test, where they got bundled out for 36. And there were so many other adversities which the Indian team overcame and won the test match. After that, the newspapers reported a very interesting story. And the storyline was, the headline of the story was, if Virat is angry Amitabh, Rahane is Amol Palekar. This is the headline. If Virat is angry Amitabh, Rahane is Amol Palekar. This was something very innovative on the part of the editor. And this headline, it seemed to him, summed it up all as to what had transpired on the field in the test match, as well as in the overall series. So, if we try to make the meaning of this headline, there are several aspects that come out that need to be underlined. And here, I may like to ask one of you if you can come forward and tell me if you know who Amol Palekar is. It's a very difficult, I feel sad to ask this question. I assume everybody knows Amol Palekar, but still, in a given section of the society, when I asked this question, some students said, we don't know who Amol Palekar is. That's why I cannot take it for granted that all know who Amol Palekar is. So do you all know who Amol Palekar is? One of you, if possible, can reply. I assume that you know. Yeah. So I assume that you know who Amol Palekar is. But now, is it possible for you to tell me what this headline means and what this headline wants to tell? Okay, this is a real life scenario in which a particular linguistic string is used. And I also have a picture of this particular headline in a slide. This is taken from the Indian Express. And when I ask students to make the meaning of this particular line and the underlying processes involved in it, it makes them wonder the amount of processing that goes into it as far as the human intelligence is concerned. I then also take them forward, and we can also think about the kind of artificial intelligence that is proposed now. What kind of processes this artificial intelligence will then undergo in order to make the meaning of this particular line? What kind of information it is supposed to have beforehand in order to make the complete meaning of this particular line? So because many of you know who Amol Palekar is, you're not completely unaware of this particular word, it may become easier for you to make the meaning of this particular sentence. So if I don't know if this can be made more interactive, but if I can request you, any one of you, to please tell me what do you think is the meaning of this line? Then I may take that as an input and proceed further. And then I would like to also highlight some other points in the presentation. Yes, go ahead. Who wants to say something? Anita, and before that, iPad. I don't know who this iPad is, but this iPad, can you please speak up and tell me what is the meaning of this line, please?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Actually, we have kept all of them on mute,
Mute.
but
Okay.
if it is requirement, then we have to unmute on selective basis.
Yeah. So I don't think I'll have much more interactions of this kind, but maybe now if we can ask someone.
Okay, so we can unmute Anita Lashkare.
Yes, please. Yes, please. And then I think I will
Namo
move
Namah,
on.
sir.
Yeah.
I just wanted, what I understood from these lines, if Amitabh is angry man for his movies, if the blockbuster movies we have, then Amitabh should work in that.
Yes.
But Amol Palekar is also that kind of person, intellectual, and his acting and his whatever he does, his movies can be a blockbuster also. So the lines means Amitabh and Amol Palekar are on the same stage, according to me.
Yeah, that's right. So this is all right. This is correct. But can you go ahead and extend it to the scenario that is being described?
The scenario is not only Amitabh give us a blockbuster, Amol Palekar can also do the work same what Amitabh does.
That is right. So applying
So
it
captain,
to
only captain is not needed for the hit or a win.
Yeah. So what it means is that, thank you, Anita, madam.
Thank you, sir.
You said it correctly, and probably you can also explain it in a more elaborate manner. So, Shakuntala, madam, can we unmute Mr. Dhiren, please, for a second?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Dhiren.
I think, sir, the reference is to the victory that Ajinkya Rane brought us in Australia.
Yeah.
The comparison in personalities that can deliver.
Okay. So now, Shakuntala, madam, now I don't want anyone to be unmuted. Thank you very much for your feedback. I'm sorry, Surashri as well as Lalita madam. I would like to proceed. I wanted to bring home a point by bringing this example, by saying that there are such numerous examples around us which may interest us. And if we scratch a little bit, if we probe a little further into the processes that we as human beings undergo in order to understand what these sentences mean, we will be able to know what should be done when we want a machine to undergo similar processes. So the line is about the cricket, the story is about the cricket report, what has happened on the pitch. India has come back and they have won the match. And in describing this, the headline says, if Virat is angry Amitabh, Rahane is Amol Palekar. Rahane is captaining India in this second test match. And Rahane is not like Kohli, who expresses his anger, who is very aggressive on the cricket field. He is very cool. But the point is that just as angry Amitabh delivers hit after hit, so also did Amol Palekar in his own manner delivered several hits in 1970s and early 80s. So what mattered the most was getting popular. You could be angry Amitabh, or you could be somebody else like Amol Palekar. And things work with both these. That is the point. So this is the inference that we are drawing from the headline that we see on the sports page. This headline describes, on the face of it, a phenomenon in the film industry, on the face of it, which then means that this headline is not suited, prima facie at least, on a sports page. And still, the wise editor of the Indian Express does not hesitate in putting this as a headline on the sports page. This forces us to draw an inference, namely that there is something common between the people, the celebrities which are mentioned in this particular headline. And then we link them to the actual happenings. We may, while studying Sanskrit literature, have studied similar phenomena, and we also know how to describe those phenomena. This is a real example which also takes us forward in our study of those phenomena. Notably, the power of word, the Shakti of word. How does the Shakti Graha happen? Also, in this case, how do we go beyond what the Shakti proposes? So if we note down each step that is involved in the cognition of this sentence, and to understand it fully, we will note down the entire cause and effect relationship in between these cognitions. Okay, and this will become an example of a very pertinent problem as far as the explanation of human cognitions is concerned. How do we cognize? What is the cause and effect relationship between two cognitions? How does Shabda Bodha occur? How does a Bodha from a Shabda arise? And mind you, this is a very challenging, a very deep topic, a deep theme, and needs quite a lot of thinking, needs quite a lot of explanation on the part of the researcher. The new fields that are coming up in order to explain such phenomena are related to the natural language processing. One such field is called cognitive natural language processing. cognitive NLP. And I will show you some slides in which some problems will get highlighted. At IIT Bombay, we carried out parts of our research on some of these themes, and more research can be immediately and for sure carried out on various other aspects related to this particular theme. I was fortunate, and am fortunate enough to get good students to whom when I assign a particular subject or topic, they take it to their heart to explore the topic further, even if the topic throws them out of their comfort zone. Cognitive NLP was such a topic, and a student of mine, Jayashri, she successfully participated in the experiments carried out in the field of cognitive natural language processing, which is related to the understanding, the intelligence related to the language as such, which is very close to our heart for those who study Sanskrit Vyakarana, because Sanskrit Vyakarana Shastra has got a tradition of Artha Prakriya. Sanskrit Vyakarana Shastra has got a very strong tradition of Shabda Prakriya. No doubt. The entire grammar written by Panini and the commentaries composed in order to explain the sutras of Panini, they do deal with this particular aspect, where words are subjected to the process of derivation, where rules get applied to words, and the words are taken as input, rules apply on them, and the words get processed, and those output words, they are returned. So in this fashion, Shabda Prakriya definitely works as far as Panini's grammar is concerned. But together with the Shabda Prakriya, there is also a very strong tradition which is devoted to Artha Prakriya. Artha Prakriya is equally or perhaps more important. The only fact is that Artha Prakriya cannot be done in the same fashion as the Shabda Prakriya is done as far as Sanskrit grammar is concerned. This is the view, or this was the view of the Paninian grammatical tradition. This is where the modern researchers can start. The Artha Prakriya, which was not considered, there was a strong tradition of Artha Prakriya, which explained Artha Prakriya, and yet they stopped at a particular point in time. And the modern researcher can definitely start from the point where they stopped. And this they can do together with the help of the digital technology available to us. And it is this aspect that should allow students to take up the study of Vyakarana, and this will help them unearth several key factors as far as the human intelligence is concerned related to the language. With this background and with this information, let me now share my slides with you, in which I will talk about some researches that have been carried out at our institute, which will be the examples. And of course, there will be some questions that I will be raising. So first, let me share what I have to say about the cognitive NLP, which I was talking about. Okay. So let me share the screen. Share screen. Is the screen visible to you all? Perhaps yes. Okay. So cognitive NLP is a field which leverages cognitive information for performing natural language processing tasks. There is a book called Cognitive NLP by these two scholars, Abhijit Mishra and Pushpak Bhattacharya. This is a work for reference. So, as I give you an example of the headline in the Indian Express and the kind of processes that we need to have in order to grasp its meaning fully. Similarly, there will be several other facets, features, which will be cognitive in nature, and we can definitely use them for performing the natural language processing tasks. So the cognitive NLP utilizes the cognitive aspect of language, in addition to data-driven approaches. So, in doing so, currently at IIT Bombay, we have used, the researchers Abhijit Mishra has used, and also some other researchers have used the eye tracker machine and the methodology that is used in it. So eye tracking as a tool has been successful in obtaining accurate moment-to-moment online spatial and temporal record for every word, irrespective and independent of a word being used in isolation or in context. And I have quoted the relevant material from which this information is taken. Similarly, a large body of research in eye movement suggests lexical processing to be rapid and automatic and autonomous, and post-lexical effects to be slow. An individual has to make eye movements to access a particular part of the text while reading. This movement from one word or a part of the text to another is called a saccade. The duration of a saccade depends on its length and takes around 20 to 30 milliseconds, and hence information is hardly extracted, and so on. And then there are several other features, other technical terms that can be introduced. Now, research in several languages like English, French, Finnish, German confirm that most first fixations fall just left, right of the center of a word and were independent of word length. We don't have to go into the nitty-gritties of all this, but we can definitely see what this author, Abhijit Mishra, concluded. His conclusion was that eye movement information can be considered for measuring annotation complexities like translation and sentiment annotation complexity. Now, this TCI and SSE proved to be better metrics than total word count, a popular metric used currently as a measure of annotation effort. Enriched measurement of reading or annotation effort through scan path complexity that considers all facets of eye movement information, capturing cognitive effort better than total reading or annotation time. This was another conclusion that this research drew. Based on the study of eye tracking movements, a novel framework for predicting readers' sarcasm understandability can be employed, which is a multi-instance based supervised learning system which achieves better prediction accuracy. So when we study Vyakarana, there can be definitely the links that we can see in this study of Vyakarana and its input to the study of cognitive NLP. Understanding the theories put forward in Sanskrit texts, they can be looked at, they can be studied in a fresher way, gaining insights from them to understand the current phenomena, various kinds of phenomena, and exploring if these insights can be translated into developing systems to enhance the NLP. Which Sanskrit theories, we may ask? The theories would be in these particular fields, namely, language is the subject of auditory perception. Language is one compositional whole, avayavi. Cognition is the cause of audible speech, and cognition and language are identical. These theories, any one of them, can definitely be taken for further research, and the methodology adopted in the field of cognitive NLP, an eye tracking machine would be an example, can be explored in order to figure out, to find out how these theories can be applied, how these theories fare, and how these theories need to be refined, or they need to be perhaps rejected, and some new theory needs to be brought out. That will depend on the research that will be carried out on the basis of the understanding of these theories. The first, language is the subject of auditory perception. Shrotragrahyo gunashabdaha padadnanam hi karanam. This is how it is formulated in Sanskrit. Language as one compositional whole avayavi, and this is the source of that. And in other texts as well, Vakyapadiya as well, you may get more references as far as this particular feature is concerned. Cognition is the cause of the audible speech. And you can have many references to this. The first one is stated over here. Dava upadana shabdeshu shabdau shabdavido viduhu eko nimittam shabdanam aparorthe prayujyate. And finally, cognition and language are identical. And you will find sources like this, samvada mula shabdaha, dhyanam cha, and so on. So these are just the instances, some of the references that are presented to you, but there are many more references that one can easily find out, on the basis of which one can explore further. And then there are several other theories available in traditional texts of Sanskrit Vyakarana. For example, definition of a sentence. So what is a Vakya? Compositionality of a sentence and compositionality of sentence meaning. Similarly, Yogyata. If you have a theory like Buddhir Yogyata, that can be a starting point for exploration of this particular concept. And here are those definitions provided in the Vakyapadiya at the beginning of the second kanda. Akhyata shabdaha sanghataha jatihi sanghatavartini eko navayava shabdaha kramaha buddhyanu samhritihi padamadyam prathak sarvam padam sakansham ityapi vakyam prati matir bhinna bahudha nyaya vadinam. So these are the 8 definitions provided of sentence in these 2 verses which come at the beginning of the second kanda of the Vakyapadiya. Each one of them, each one of the definitions is a gem in itself. And each one of them can be cited to address various phenomena related to the overall linguistic theory and also the factual communication. There are a few more definitions which are not enlisted over here, but which are part of the Vyakarana tradition. And they are Akhyatam Savyaya Karaka Visheshanam Vakyam as well as Ekating Vakyam. And then there are some other definitions of Vakya in some other Shastras. One of them is Arthaikatvad Vakyam. Sakangsham Ched Vibhage Syat. And so on. So all those can be put in. And you will also find that the Vijnanavadi Bauddha school has also given some thought and has also provided some definition of what is a Vakya and also what is Vakyartha. Because we deal with this in our coursework at IIT Bombay, and I regularly read Vakyapadiya with my students at IIT Bombay together with the commentaries. So we come across several fascinating aspects related to the definition of a sentence and the underlying cognitive implications therein, which need to be taken up, which can be taken up for further explorations. So, when we read this Vakyapadiya text, we also find that the Vijnanavadi Buddhas, they also have an opinion about what is a sentence and what is a sentence meaning. Apart from that, there are three views about the sentence and the sentence meaning. One of them is the Sakhanda Paksha, one of them, and the other one is the Akhanda Paksha. The Akhanda Paksha thinks that the sentence as well as the sentence meaning is one Akhanda Tattva. And there are definitions in these 8 which fall into this particular category. And then there is the other view of Sakhanda Paksha, which thinks that a sentence is made up of components, constituents. And those components can be further split into further constituents. And thus, a sentence is made up of padas, vakya is made up of padas, and padas are made up of prakriti and pratyayas. So, then the remaining definitions, namely 5 definitions amongst these 8, they are classified under the Sakhanda Paksha. And within the Sakhanda Paksha also, there are 2 streams. One is that of Abhihitanvayavadins, and the other one is that of Anvitabhidhanavadins. So Abhihitanvayavadi and Anvitabhidhanavadi, both these views are stated by some of these definitions. And it is very interesting to notice, to study how these definitions of the sentence, as far as the Abhihitanvayavadi is concerned, work and try to complement what the definitions of the sentence stated by Anvitabhidhanavadi do. In my opinion, in the opinion of the commentators, all these definitions, they are mutually exclusive. They cater to different explanations. But in my opinion, all of these definitions, they do try to, and they do definitely make up one big picture. And in my opinion, none of them is mutually exclusive. In my opinion, all these definitions, they are true, they are valid. So my own sutra is Sarva Satyavadaha. This is my sutra. And this is how I look at all these. All we need to do, which will be a job of a researcher, is to find out a proper sphere of operation in which these definitions work. They are not the definitions which fight with each other. They do not cancel anybody, but they explain different phenomena related to language in different terms, which is made part of experience by everybody at some point in time. And if we want to explain the language as a phenomenon which is experienced in multiple ways by one individual also, all these definitions should apply complementarily. All these definitions should not be treated as, contradicting one and contradicting other and getting victorious and so on, but they should be looked at from the complementary point of view. And that is the reason why the sutra that I have composed of is Sarva Satyavada Siddhanta, which looks at these as all valid, all true, applying to different domains of linguistic application. So if we look at some of these definitions, let's say Akhyata Shabda. What does this definition mean? It means that a verb is a sentence. Akhyata is the sentence. Or if this word Akhyata Shabda is interpreted as a Bahuvrihi compound, we may interpret it as a string of words that possesses one verb that is called a sentence. So if we apply this particular principle, you'll see that it has got huge application. It can be empirically tested. It can be also put into practice in the form of pedagogy. Our research, our publications are focused on this particular definition, and Jayashri extensively worked on this, and we have also published quite a lot on this, studying this particular definition from various aspects, various angles, sociolinguistically, cognitively, using also eye tracking experiment. And having said that, we address these following questions. How do we understand this definition? Is there a cognitive load in this definition? If yes, how do we explore that? What kind of experiments can be designed to proceed further in order to understand this particular theory? These are some of the very important questions that we must ask. These are the questions that are related to this particular definition and this particular field. Apart from other mechanisms, the device that can be used is an eye tracker. This device records eye movements when a reader reads a sentence, assuming that the reader undergoes cognitive processes in the process of reading. And those cognitive processes, they get reflected in the eye movement of the reader. So if a reader reads a particular paragraph, starting from the left, suppose, starting from the left, a reader continues reading until there is no block in the cognition, in the cognitive process. The moment there is a block in the cognitive process, the reader stops at that point in time and then tries to find out a solution to the block that he has encountered. And this block could be of the nature of various kinds. Sometimes it could be ambiguity, or sometimes it could be not making having encountered the word for the first time, and so on, or having completely forgotten what the word stands for, and so on and so forth. So many blockages might be there. So once this block comes in, then the reader cannot go forward. The eye movement of the reader stops there, and then it tries to find out solution that will help him solve this problem. And then the eye movement suggests whether the reader is trying to solve the problem or the reader doesn't care, he just wants to go ahead and read. But that will not make any sense cognitively. There remains a cognitive gap. So this eye tracking device can be very much used, and it records eye movements when a reader reads a sentence, assuming that the reader undergoes cognitive processes in the process of reading, and these get reflected in the eye movement of the reader. So the key questions that we can ask are the following. How does a reader comprehend an utterance as a sentence as a whole? First of all, does he understand sentence as a whole? Is it necessary to understand sentence as a whole? Does he process the sentence cognitively and stops at a point as his expectancies get fulfilled and declare that utterance as a unit called sentence cognitively? If we provide a raw corpus, can a reader identify a sentence and segment this raw corpus into meaningful strings? Is that possible? And can we study the cognitive processes of this reader through the lens of an eye tracker? These are some of the key questions that can be asked. How would this answering these questions help NLP? Study of these cognitive processes which identify a sentence from within a raw corpus might help in the natural language processing processes that tokenize a given particular corpus. Now, here are some examples. So, Vande Mataram and Satyameva Jayate are two examples in which when we travel from left to right, our eye movement happens linearly from left to right, from Vande to Mataram, and we get the complete meaning of the sentence. Similarly, Satyameva Jayate, and this also happens. There is linear action. Then, if you turn to this verse, Ya Kundendu Tushara Hara Dhavala, this is a very famous verse. This is regularly recited. Ya Kundendu Tushara Hara Dhavala, Ya Shubhravastra Vrata, Ya Veenavara Dandamandita Kara, Ya Shveta Padmasana, Ya Brahmachyuta Shankara Prabhritibhir Devai Sada Pujita or Vandita, Samam Patu Saraswati Bhagavati Nishesha Jadyapaha. Now, if you want to make the meaning of this verse using the eye tracker, we all know the meaning of this, right? But let us see how the meaning of this verse will be made. And you see, there are so many arrows, and there are some arrows in green and some squares in green, and then there is one square in red, and there is one square in blue. So if the eye moves, Ya Kundendu Tushara Hara Dhavala, we still don't know what this leads to. I mean, where is the sentence coming to an end? But when we look at Patu, then we come to know that this must be one sentence. And Saraswati must be the karta of the action of protecting mentioned in the verb Patu. So Saraswati is now linked with Patu and Sa Saraswati. So this is Sa Saraswati is linked with Patu. And now we can go back and link all these Ya with this Sa. So Ya Kundendu Tushara Haradhavala, Sa Saraswati. Ya Shubhravastra Vrata, Sa Saraswati. Ya Veedavara Danda Manditakara, Sa Saraswati. Ya Shveta Padmasana, Sa Saraswati. Ya Brahmachyuta Shankara Prabhritibihi Devaihi Sada Vandita or Pujita, Sa Saraswati. Sa Saraswati Bhagavati Nishesha Jadyapaha Mam Patu. Now, see, if we are made to ask to make the Anvaya of this verse, we'll be able to do. That is not a problem at all. But the point is, how will we understand? How will we cognize? How will we process as intelligent human beings? What is the process that we undergo when we process this information? Suppose we rely solely on the eye, then what would you do? Is it possible for you to say something about the overall cognitive process using this particular eye tracking methodology in this case? Because the eye will move from Yakun, because that is where it begins. Yakundendu Tushara Haradhavala. And then it will stop, probably it will stop there. And we'll look for a verb which is not found in the same line. Then it will move ahead and it will not stop until it finds one, namely patu. Or if there is the word ya, so it will also look for sa, and sa is found only in the last line. And so if the I moves to the last line from the first line, obviously there is some distance that the I has traveled. And so now it will come back to Yakundendu Tushara Haradhavala. And it will go to the next one now, Ya Shubhra Vastravrata. And then it will again go back to Sa Patu Saraswati and so on. So this will be the process that I will do in order to comprehend this particular line. Now, for those of us who have been reciting this line right from the childhood, for them, it does not mean that they know the meaning of the line. And we also know that the same verse and the same last line also becomes the subject of the misinterpretation, the cognitive misinterpretation, whereas this is a Sanskrit verse, but it is interpreted in Marathi. Okay, there is a Marathi interpretation, especially of the last word of this particular verse. And I myself have seen people interpreting it in this way when I was a school-going child. But that is a different thing altogether. What we want to show here is that these will be the processes that an individual will undergo while comprehending the overall meaning of this particular verse. Okay. I thank Jayashri, who, upon my instruction, prepared this and also some subsequent slides. Similarly, you see, we take another example from poetry where you have words spread here and there. Atha prajanam adhipa prabhate jaya pratigrahita gandhamalyam vanaya pita pratibaddhavatsam yashodhano dhinum rusher mumocha. So suppose you don't have to write anything down, you just have to comprehend them by reading the verse, these words. What would you do? So atha prajanam adhipa prabhati, you still are searching for the verb which you find only at the end, mumocha. So one wise way is to start always from the end. That can also be done, but generally we don't do that. We start from the left-hand side, and so momocha is the verb that is found, and now we link everything with momocha. So dhenum, momocha. Rishehe dhenum, momocha. And adhipaha, momocha, and so on. So adhipaha yashodhanaha prabhate jaya pratigrahita gandhamalyam pita pratibaddha vatsam dhenum rushehe dhenum vanaya momocha. And this is how then one will be able to make or comprehend the sentences that are part of this particular verse. Similarly, you see now there are complexities. Keyurana vibhushayanti purusham. Harana chandrojvalaha. Nasnanam na vilepanam na kusumam na alankrita murdhajaha. Varnyeka sabalankaroti purusham yasamskrita dharyate. Kshiyante khalu bhushanani satatam. Avagбhushanam bhushanam. How do you make the meaning of this verse? And I have several examples. I will not go into the details of all that right now. And then how do you read the books? Like, for example, this is a critical edition that I have published. How do you read the critical edition? So you constantly go back and forth and so on. And then there are several other similar examples. So if we read this, for example, I'll take this and then I will probably take some questions and answers. I'll summarize and then I'll take some question answers. So if you look at the meaning given here of the sentence Ramaha Gramam Gacchati, Ramo Gramam Gacchati, which has got three parts, Ramaha, Gramam, and Gacchati. And the meanings of each of them is provided to you. Ramaha is Prakrityartha Ramanishta Prakarata Nirupita Pratyayartha Ramanishta Visheshyata. Gramam Prakrityartha Gramanishta Prakarata Nirupita Pratyayartha Karmanishta Visheshyata. And Gacchati Prathama Purusha Ekavachana Nishta Prakarata Nirupita Kartrunishta Visheshyata. Nishta Prakarata Nirupita Vartamana Nishta Prakarata Nirupita Gamana Nishta Visheshyata Nishta Visheshyata Nishta Visheshyata. And when we join these together, we get our sentence meaning, namely written on the square block below, Prakrityartha Gramanishta Prakarata Nirupita, Pratyayartha Karmanishta Visheshata, Nishta Prakarata Nirupita. And now you see there are different colors that are used. Prathama Purusha Ekavachana Nishta Prakarata Nirupita, Prakrityartha Ramanishta Prakarata Nirupita, Pratyayartha Ramanishta Visheshata, Abhinna Kartrunishta Visheshata, Nishta Prakarata Nirupita, Vartamana Nishta Prakarata Nirupita, Gamana Nishta Visheshata, Nishta Visheshata, Nishta Visheshyata. So this is the sentence meaning, and then you can write it in different colors altogether, and then you can also see where do they get reflected. The blue color words are the meaning of the first word Ramaha. Then you have red color of pink color, which is of second word, and then the other color which is of the third word. And this is how they will make the meaning of the entire sentence. Now you can also figure out the meaning of this entire sentence also altogether. How do you make the meaning of this? If there is no color, then it will be very difficult. If there are no brackets also, you would see, what am I reading? This is just a string of words put one after another, which probably don't make any sense. But that is not the case. They have some specific sense. There is some methodology in arranging them, but that becomes very significant by adding some brackets or adding some colors, and then it is easier for one to comprehend. But this can definitely become an interesting subject also for the eye tracking methodology, how it works, how it gets comprehended. So here are some technical terms that I coined related to the eye tracking experiment. And they were read in the Brahad Maharashtra Prachya Vidya Parishad Nasik 2017, and they also got published in our publication, joint publication, that was published in a journal that is published by the Shilpakon University, Bangkok, Thailand. So Drukpata is the term for gaze point. Drukpata Dhara for saccades, Drukpari Nivartanam or Drukprishthagamitvam for regression or backtracking, Drugavasayaha fixation, Druggalanam athava Druguddanam skip, and Drukpata Dhara Margaha is the scan path. And there are some more terms that are coined. Now, in this lecture so far, I started with one common example which was found in the newspapers, and then I turned your attention to this very important field of cognitive NLP. Then I also presented to you the methodology that has been adopted by some researchers in this field very recently, notably at IIT Bombay, where they have used eye tracking terminology, eye tracking methodology. Then I also pointed to you the relevant sources which can be definitely used and which can be also tested and which can be developed further. Remember, they are sources, they are stores of questions, stores of research potentials. And that is the reason why I am also opening those up to all you budding researchers. And this is a very important field as far as the Sanskrit grammar is concerned. And it has got a bright future and bright prospect as far as I know. So I request, I urge the current young generation of researchers to think more seriously about taking up research into this particular field, for which they would obviously need to have a solid background as far as Vyakarana is concerned. Because remember, this is interdisciplinary. And as I said to you, you need to prepare yourself. You need to sometimes throw yourself out of the comfort zone. That is also what eventually happens. But by that, you should not be rattled, you should not be disheartened. You should try to try to explore something new, some new horizon. And however, for that, all that you must know or have a background of is that of strong Sanskrit Vyakarana. You should know the theories of the Sanskrit Vyakarana as far as the Shabdabodha is concerned, the Artha Prakriya is concerned. So today I focused on the Artha Prakriya and also on the cognitive aspect of this Artha Prakriya and how uh, research can be carried out in future in this particular field. And for that, I also gave you one example of the research that is being carried out or that was carried out in this particular field using a strong Sanskrit background. And you can also you can also find out several articles of ours written by Jayashri and myself on the internet as well. Many of them are there on the internet. Some of them are also probably available in the print form, like the Journal of the Linguistic Society of India, which is available in the hard copy. And some articles are published in Language in India, which is an online journal. So those who want to work further and get more details of this should collect these references and try to go through them and try to see if they can also contribute in this particular field. With these words and this summarizations, I would like to stop here. I would like to take some questions. Once again, I thank the authorities of the Department of Sanskrit, University of Mumbai, for having invited me here to talk to you on this particular theme. I hope there will be some researchers um, who will strive hard to also explore these avenues which remain unexplored hitherto. Thank you all. Thanks a lot. Now I would like to take up questions and would like to discuss those questions. I will stop sharing now.
Hello, is there any question?
I can take up any question asked in English or Marathi, Hindi, Sanskrit, Gujarati also.
Sir, meanwhile, can I ask a question?
Yes, 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 sure.
Since, sir, you have very well mentioned that this is a very important field from the perspective of research, and the strong background of Sanskrit Vyakarana is definitely necessary.
Yes.
Along with that, what is needed means what one student should study to take this particular field or to pursue the research in this field, and what are the institutions where such research can be pursued?
Yeah, so the first thing I said was about Sanskrit sources, the solid background in those Sanskrit sources, primarily because that is what is ultimately very, very important. And of course, then if you have done some course in cognitive science or psychology, in which some of these techniques will be dealt with, that would be helpful. But I'm once again highlighting the fact that the students should know, the students should have at least read the explanation of the theories that are presented in the Sanskrit text, because that is what is we are researching, right? That is what we are finding, we are exploring about. And I find that if there isn't any background in Sanskrit, then probably the raison d'etre of this particular endeavor remains unfulfilled, I mean, non-existent at all. So if you can get some more information in these other fields, yes, please do, but pay attention to stabilizing your base in the Sanskrit Vyakarana studies first. And then you can get into various institutions which can help you study this, can help you pursue, do research. Like, for example, the government of India has recently launched a scheme called Indian Knowledge System. And in this Indian knowledge systems, we can definitely include such areas, and more research can be carried out along with these backgrounds and in this particular field. This is what is the area of research that is going to dominate the research field in the coming years. The data science, which is already there right now, and the artificial intelligence. And this is how we can contribute, the students of Sanskrit. So yes, there are institutions, as I said to you, Indian knowledge system is a very good scheme that the government has launched. And if you are well versed in Vyakarana Shastra, you can clearly take these up and conduct the research. And this could also give rise to several applications which are directly user-friendly, which can be also employed in the or deployed in the actual fields. Okay. And of course, there are several other areas of research which I did not decide to speak on today, like automatic story generation and so on. I reserve that for some other time in future. But I wanted to highlight this particular field, which students should seriously think of exploring.
Sir, thank you.
So I also said that a student of mine conducted research at IIT Bombay, and so our department is open for such researches, but there are other IITs which can also be open for this, and Indian knowledge system would be a very good help. So IIT Kharagpur, IIT Gandhinagar, they will be the good places for conducting this particular research right now.
Sir,
Yeah.
Alka is asking how artificial intelligence will help in understanding Sanskrit grammar.
Wait a second, let me see. Alka is asking what? How artificial
She's
intelligence?
asking
How
how
artificial?
artificial intelligence will help in understanding Sanskrit grammar.
Okay. So, yeah, good question. Artificial intelligence may, in fact, create several problems in understanding Sanskrit grammar. Because right now, I'm saying this from my experience, dealing with several systems that great scholars have developed over a period of time, taking pains. So if we take a simple example of a word like Himalaya, and we understand it as Hima and having the two components Hima and Alaya, but the artificial intelligence will also try to see if there are some other possible explanations. There could be several possible explanations. One of the tasks that the computer scientists are seen facing, at least by me, is how to deal with the over generation. So this is the current problem that artificial intelligence is posing, over generation. Okay. So how do we over generate? So sometimes the human beings who are not endowed with that capacity of functioning artificially, we are also endowed with judging a particular or comprehending a particular string in a particular context. So many times we do not over generate. We understand it by context. And so we don't fathom the problem of over generation. Now, understanding Sanskrit grammar by human intelligence is itself good enough, I think, in my own experience. And artificial intelligence will also help in a way as far as the primary aid. But as an individual grows, and if the power of the computing, if the power of the machine gets also increased, then it will obviously lead to a lot of chaos, a lot of confusion, a lot of over generation, which the learner would find it very difficult to cope up with. But otherwise it can help if the system that thus developed using the artificial intelligence is given in specific competence kind of modules. Just as we do in Shabda Mitra, we do not feed quite a lot of information to a beginner, a learner. We feed only that much information which is needed, which is very relevant, which is very core, but very small amount of information. And as the competence level increases, we provide more information. We give more amount of knowledge, surrounded, associated information that we provide. So if systems are developed in this manner, they will definitely aid. One other area that they will aid is the objective factors related to language, namely, let's say, the pronunciation. If obviously it is very difficult to say that something is objective when it comes to pronunciation, according to current theoreticians. But still, if we accept some pronunciation as standard, which is acceptable to all, that pronunciation can be stored using artificial intelligence, and clearly that can then be relayed through the intelligence, artificial intelligence. And that will save quite a lot of time, quite a lot of energy on the part of the teachers, and will also enable the learner to grasp fast if the standard is quite clear to the person. Okay, if the standard varies from one person to another, then it becomes very difficult for an individual to make progress faster, because he will constantly be in confusion. Which should he follow? That is an advantage of artificial intelligence. And yeah, for learning Sanskrit grammar, artificial intelligence can be helpful in such manners. But apart from that, as I said earlier, it also will pose quite a lot of problems also, problems of overgeneration, for example. So if it is supervised, completely supervised, then there won't be any problem. But if it is not supervised, if it is semi-supervised, then there will be a lot of problem of overgeneration. So those who want to learn Sanskrit grammar and those who want to use artificial intelligence for it, my advice to them is that they should go for supervised systems and not the unsupervised systems. If you can get a completely supervised system, better. But if you want to go for relatively supervised, then you can also look for some semi-supervised system, but never go for unsupervised system. Is that clear? Otherwise, learning Sanskrit grammar one has to put in some effort in learning Sanskrit grammar. One cannot completely do away with that. That is what the experience tells. If you try to do away with all that, then probably your base remains weak, which is not a good thing. So there has to be some time given to it, which will make an individual based strongly in the grammatical tradition, which will enable. So we used to do several exercises when I used to regularly visit the Abhyankar Shastri Pathashala Pune every weekend. So many exercises we used to do, so many things we used to do. That probably taught quite a lot to those students. They spent that much time over there, and that took them to different heights. So that, I think, cannot be replaced. At least in my opinion. Any other question, please? Yes, there is one more, it seems.
Yes, sir, there is one more question from Lalita. How are the results of eye tracker analyzed, and can it be used to track languages which we read from right to left as well?
Yes. So there are, in our own institution, IIT Bombay, the research has been carried out on languages that are read from right to left using eye tracking methodology. So definitely that is being used currently. And coming to the first question, so the results, they are primarily statistical, but as I said to you, they are based on the intuitions, which are more human related. Like if you are reading from a particular point, if you start from a particular point and you stop at a point, now the eye tracking machine may calculate how many times you came back to the same point. Now that might indicate, by probabilistic measures, that you are not yet clear about that particular point. That is one possibility. And from that one particular unclear point, what are the other points towards which your eyes moved? Now, if that path is also studied, then you may say that, well, I was looking for some solution, some help to solve the problem. And that is the reason why the eye went from this particular point to several such other points. And probably it did receive some help. And that is the reason why it came back thinking that it has solved the problem. And it came back to this point, tried to apply, but probably it didn't work. So it went to some other point. This is how the results will be explained. And this is how much comprehension of the text has happened can be understood, can be pointed out, can be said. Okay. And so you can also track how much unit, how many strings make a particular reader fulfill his expectancy of a sentence. So if you apply the theories of Sanskrit grammar, akhandatva and sakhandatva and so on, in different contexts, yes, you will be able to explain those theories better, whether a sentence is akhanda or sakhanda, no, or not. You'll be able to explain them better also using this methodology. There could be some other methodologies also, but yes, this could be used in this direction. Now, can we go to Surashri, please?
Yes, sir. Her question is, apart from research area, are there established job market in India for Sanskrit graduates with data science or artificial intelligence certificate courses? And if yes, how to approach in Mumbai area?
Okay, so there are, as of now, no such centers, because in the data science, you may have to have different capabilities than just Sanskrit grammar. So if you want to couple those capabilities with the knowledge of Sanskrit grammar, yes, this is a very well received and welcome move, but alone, so there are different eligibility criteria for the data science, and they are common to every other field and not just restricted to the field of Sanskrit Vyakarana. So I was talking about applying these various theories that are available in the Sanskrit text, Vyakarana text, to the various aspects of this particular field. And one such sub-field was the cognitive NLP. One such sub-methodology was that of the eye tracking methodology. Is there any other question? So if there is no other question, then I would also like to thank all my students, Jayashri, and especially who obtained her PhD degree in 2021, and her topic was the cognitive and socio-linguistic study of the first definition in the Vakyapadiya, namely Akhyata Shabdaha. And she did use the eye tracking methodology in this particular study. I thank her who helped me in preparation of these slides. And I also thank several other students of mine who helped in at various stages. I also take this opportunity to thank also Professor Pushpak Bhattacharya and IIT Bombay, in whose lab this research was carried out, as we are part of that particular lab. Once again, I would like to thank the authorities of the Department of Sanskrit, University of Mumbai, for having extended an invitation to me to give this particular lecture. Thank you, and thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot for your wonderful lecture. By giving the example of news related to cricket, you made this lecture very interesting and interactive. You very briefly spoke on cognitive NLP and motivated our students for research in this direction. Your lecture is really inspirational for our students. I thank you once again for such thought-provoking lecture. I thank Rohit sir of UCC for providing us Zoom facility. I thank all students for attending this lecture. Tomorrow we will have a lecture on Sanskrit text, classicism and modernity.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. We hope that our students will take research in this particular field, and our department also will have soon research related to Sanskrit grammar connected with all these fields you highlighted in your lecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello. Hello.
We can end the meeting.
Yeah, please.